Welcome. You're here today because you've been selected to be part of a search committee. It is a requirement at St. Edward's University for each search committee member to take and pass the training every 3 years. Today, you will learn about your role on the search committee as well as its purpose. You'll learn how to recognize your own biases, learn about the flow and various steps of a search, how to access and review applicants, and how to locate the provided tools that ensure a fair, equitable, and effective hiring process. At the end of this training, there will be a quiz and you are required to pass with a score of at least 80%. Okay, let's get to it. At St. Edward's University, our strength lies in our sense of community, which is grounded in our Holy Cross values and heritage. In support of our mission, the different backgrounds of St. Edward's students, faculty, and staff enrich our community and represent a significant part of our culture and commitment to excellence. We value the individual differences, life experiences, unique capabilities, and innovative talent that our employees and students contribute to our vibrant academic environment. We prioritize our core values and community and are confident in our hiring practices. The purpose of a search committee is to ensure the hiring process embodies the university's commitment to inclusive excellence. It is essential the hiring committee is composed and trained such that its members can recognize and counteract structural inequity and explicit biases. We give this process the attention it deserves because, 1, search committees are an important and powerful expression of higher education's shared governance model for decision-making. 2, key stakeholders should be involved in decisions that impact the arena of work and service. 3, committee involvement deepens the shared commitment to the institution's mission and welfare. And 4, search committee work helps build confidence and trust among colleagues and co-workers. Be mindful of search committee power dynamics. Set a professional and collaborative tone. Consider what professional or personal relationships are within the search committee members and ensure you don't allow groupthink to take over. And let's make sure all individuals have an equal opportunity to voice their thoughts. Some useful strategies that can help ensure equitable participation in the decision-making are: use a process that allows each member to rank candidates on their own. Don't share your impression of the candidate during the process. Wait to provide it until the end. Avoid rushing through the decision-making. However, be mindful about the time it takes for the search process. We don't want to lose valuable candidates because it's taken too long. So what is bias? Bias is generally described as a tendency to favor a thing, a person, or a group, usually in a way that is thought to be unfair. According to researchers, biases exist at 2 different levels, and both types profoundly impact the ways we interact with the world and tend to perpetuate much of the inequality that exists in our society. The 2 types of biases are explicit and implicit, or conscious and unconscious. Explicit bias refers to beliefs we have about others on a conscious level. This bias is reflected outwardly as racism, sexism, stereotyping, and discrimination. These thoughts can be recognized so we can actually identify the behaviors and make changes. Conscious bias in its extreme is characterized by overt negative behavior that can be expressed through physical and verbal harassment or through more subtle means such as exclusion. The more dangerous bias is implicit or unconscious. These biases are hidden within a blind spot of our mind. These biases guide behavior without our being aware of their role. Once lodged in the brain and based on what we have experienced or been exposed to in life, hidden biases can influence behavior toward members of particular social groups, such as women, minorities, people of certain religions, people of certain ages, and more. What is so dangerous about implicit bias is that it automatically seeps into a person's behavior and is outside of the full awareness of that person. So be careful, because fundamentally there isn't anything wrong with some of these connections. We've made our biases to protect us from threat or danger, but the potential problem is that if we always lean toward our preferences during the evaluation or selection process, guess who we are likely to hire? people that look like us, talk like us, think like us, and we could be missing out on valuable candidates. We all have to remember we are hiring the best candidate who is able to fulfill the essential job functions for the position, and not because we want to check off boxes to hire a diverse workforce. Let's watch this short video.
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
Implicit bias.
2016 was the year that implicit bias went somewhat mainstream.
Yeah, so when Hillary Clinton mentioned implicit bias in the debates, our phones started blowing up, all our friends started emailing us about it.
But what is implicit bias? Implicit biases are basically thought processes that happen without you even knowing it. Little mental shortcuts that hold judgments you might not agree with. And sometimes the shortcuts are based on race. First, some clarity. Saying someone has an implicit bias is different from calling someone a racist.
The word racist is a highly loaded term, right, here in American society. A lot of times, when people are using it, they're thinking of the kind of old-fashioned Ku Klux Klan style racist.
But implicit bias isn't anywhere near that, explicit.
Implicit bias is something that comes out of ordinary mental functioning, out of how the mind normally works.
We've all grown up in a culture with media images, news images, conversations we heard at home, our education. Think of that as a fog we've been breathing our whole life. We never even realized it, what we were taking in.
And that fog causes associations that lead to biases.
I somehow know that if you say peanut butter, I'm going to say jelly. That's an association that's been ingrained in me because throughout my life, peanut butter and jelly are together. And in many forms of media, there is an over-representation of Black men and violent crime being paired together.
And because of that, I actually deep down inside have been taught that Black men are violent and aggressive and not to be trusted, that they're criminals, that they're thugs.
With all those associations, I'm not trying to let us off the hook, but in some ways, none of us stood a chance.
Starting today, we'll post a video a day dealing with one challenge of understanding implicit bias and its relationship to race, and exploring ways we might combat the problem. One more thing, if you're seeing this and thinking that it doesn't apply to you, well, you might be falling prey to the blind spot bias. That's the scientific name for a mental bias that allows you to see biases in others, but not in yourself. We're biased.
So what can we do about it? Build awareness. Realize and accept that we all have bias. Watch for it in ourselves and help others who work with us to do the same. Seek opportunities to meet and or learn about others from different social, demographic, racial, and cultural backgrounds that are significantly different from our own. By shifting your mindset and inviting constant inquiry into how you make decisions, you can help create an institution in which the diversity of faculty and staff reflect the mission of St. Edward's University. Another way to avoid bias is to establish evaluation criteria at the beginning of the search and prevent errors such as rushing to judgment. When you have a strong group members, it's easy to reach consensus without sufficient discussion. This makes it difficult for others to challenge these conclusions. Shifting standards, holding different candidates to different standards based on stereotypes. Seizing a pretext, using a minor reason to disqualify a candidate without properly considering all other criteria. Elitism, assuming that individuals from prestigious institutions are the best candidates. And ranking prematurely, designating some as more promising without fully considering strengths and weaknesses of all applicants. Now we'll move to the nuts and bolts of the search process. The process and your role in it can be simple. You'll meet with a hiring manager and others on the committee to talk about how the search will run and what the expectations are. Your human resources liaison is available to support each hiring manager and the search committee with resources and best practices aimed at creating an easy experience for both the committee and the applicants. St. Edward's uses iSolved, formerly known as Applicant Pro, as its applicant tracking system for all positions except student hires. The system is set up for search committees to access, review, rate, and comment on all applicants. It's also used to communicate between the committee members and directly with applicants. You can access iSolved on My Hilltop, along with other tools and resources for hiring managers and members of search committees. The recruitment toolkit includes sample interview questions, interview matrices, and other helpful resources. Once you've completed this search committee training, either you or the hiring manager can request access to the specific job or department and start reviewing applicants in iSolved. Email recruiting@stedwards.edu. Transparency with the job posting and the search is key for retention and providing a good applicant experience with St. Ed's. Be upfront about the salary, the start date, benefits, schedule flexibility, etc. And you will want to start screening candidates as soon as possible. If the candidate doesn't qualify or the committee is not interested, it's best practice to notify the applicant as soon as possible. Within 5 business days is ideal for rejections. Negative feedback is better than no feedback. Once you are in iSolved, you'll see lots of options for reviewing candidates. See each applicant's status, review their application and their attachments, look at the original job posting. Use the tools to rate the applicant, send messages, and even add notes so others on the committee will see your comments. Applicant status. Keep the search committee and the applicants updated by using the status dropdown. Different status options include not qualified, limited availability, failed search, application withdrawn, etc. Once the status has been updated, you have the option to send a personalized email to the applicant that will come from Human Resources. Templates have been created for each status, and you'll be able to review it before clicking the send button. Once the search committee has finished their interviews and picked their final candidate, the next steps are to complete reference checks, update the status fields for all applicants so they receive a closing email, and send all of your interview notes and documents to the hiring manager. The hiring manager must notify Human Resources to close the posting. Without the notification, the job will remain open. Thank you. This concludes your search committee training. Proceed to the quiz and receive at least 80% to be certified. You may review the training again. Contact recruiting@stedwards.edu with any questions.